Welcome in everyone to HogvilleNET YouTube Live. I'm Kevin McPherson. Good afternoon. I know it's Saturday. You've got I guess it was the college football opener over in Dublin. Iowa State, Kansas State, a couple of rankings in football, but we talk daily about basketball. And what's interesting is we knew that the team was returning soon, and we knew what Arkansas put on the court in the summer, limited summer stuff, June and July. And then in mid-June, you added two 7-footers, effectively both international players, and you're just waiting to get those players on campus. When was that going to happen? What are the first reports we start getting on these two 7-footers? We've talked a lot about rotations, top 8 players, and the pecking order after that. Have speculated about these guys and that they'll probably, as coming in as first-year players, obviously, at least in the beginning stages, be on the outside looking into that top 8, top 9 rotation. But we've already started to hear some interesting things. I think we first start with that John Calipari on Friday put out a couple of photos via his Twitter account. One of them was the entire team, all 15 players, including the walk-ons, and we'll go through those names when we wrap up, just to be on the record with everything on who's there. But he had all 15. Then he had a second photo beside that with the big men. So Arkansas is 3 deep until they're not, right? They got the two 7-footers, so now they're 5 deep on the front line. And they had all 5 big men inside the Performance Center at center court where the Razorback logo is, with their wingspans, flaunting those wingspans, gingerly touching their fingertips to one another, so that they effectively, 5 of them, almost wrapped around the top of that big hog logo, that giant hog logo. So you get the idea that Arkansas is not messing around, not this year, not on that front line, not in terms of the quality of the playable 2-deep rotation, veteran guys, talented guys, but even a glimpse at the future. And we'll see, is the future now. There's a guy like Paulo Semedo, what we've talked about. What can he do to give himself a chance to jump in there and crack that rotation? But a couple of things are already coming out of that. First of all, the photos are insane. Semedo in the 15-player team photo is on one end, and he's a row up closer to the camera than the other big men that are on the back row. So he looks even taller than them. Just by listed height, he comes in as the tallest player, 7'1". But, from that perspective, you almost think, well, he's Ralph Sampson height, 7'4". I mean, he's up there. How tall is Wemby really? Is he in the conversation? Not that he's as tall as Wemby, but you get the idea. He's closer to that maybe than some of Arkansas's other bigs. And then the second photo again, where the bigs are, kind of side by side. There's a little curvature in that line. It's not a straight line. And again, Semedo a little bit in the foreground. So it exaggerates how he's dwarfing other players. I mean, from a zoomed out view, it looks like the player next to him, because he's on the end in both photos, but on the wingspan photo, it looks like the player next to him might be Kareem Artal, who's now listed more accurately at 6'6" or 6'7". He's between 6'6" and 6'7", and previously advertised as 6'9". But you almost think it's Kareem Artal standing next to him. When you blow up the photo, it's Trevor Brazile, who's 6'10" with a 7'4" wingspan. Now, when we reported, previously when Semedo signed with Arkansas, I remember my article at the time of commitment to announce that included the wingspan that I was given that reported 7'5" wingspan. But when you look at just the arm length, spread out like that, it seems like it's greater than that. Now, I think I mentioned on one of these podcasts, one of my international sources had told me he thought the wingspan was closer to 7'8". And I'm just going to tell you, I mean, I trust something closer to 7'8" than I do even 7'5" right now, because Trevor Brazile at 6'10" has a 7'4" wingspan, and Semedo looks like he's got more than, an inch in the wingspan department there when you tally it up. So maybe he's closer to that 7'8" wingspan. These two players, he and Elmir Zavich, who arrived last week, I remember we reported on our Wednesday show that Semedo had arrived Tuesday, so a day before. Zavich was to arrive on Thursday, so a couple of days ago, and then Calipari puts the team photo out on Friday. So I'm assuming that timeline played out like we thought it would. Yeah, I mean, in that photo, if Semedo, one of the comments is if Semedo is 7'1", then Brazile's 6'2". That, again, he's a little bit more in the foreground in both photos. But even having said that, the university still on the official website does not have either Zavich or Semedo listed just yet. So I'm interested to see what dimensions they get, what height and weights they're assigned. They don't typically list wingspans on that. I don't know if they'll update that to do it, but the wingspan is just insane in addition to the height. This is just you talk about two players that as soon as they arrive on campus, the city of Fayetteville needs to consider adding a new zip code. That's the kind of thing. I mean, Javich is a monster. I've seen him listed at 6'11", 7 foot. He's thick from head to toe. This guy's got tree trunk legs, thick thighs, thick calves. He looks like a mountainous kind of guy, and he looks to be every bit of 7 foot. If Malik Ewan, Nick Pringle, and Trevor Brazil are all 6'10", which is now how the official website lists each one of those guys, and we know Trevor Brazil's added good weight. But next to these two, they all of a sudden Arkansas's front line went from good size, maybe plus size relative to some other teams, to now super sized. These two big men, that's what they've done. Those are the boxes they've checked. Any shot that the Bosnian big man plays for us this year? Everybody played last year, even the guys outside the rotation. Now if you got up, went and got a cup of coffee in between, you might have missed it if you blinked. We'll see what Calipari's doing this time around in terms of those back end guys that are more developmental, long-term kind of guys. But look, already, this is what the lead really should have been, and we're almost 7 minutes in, kind of introducing the fact these guys are here. The photos are out there. I'm already told inside the building, remember, Semedo got there 2 days sooner. Got there Tuesday. Classes started back Monday. And I'm already told in whatever on-court activity has been going on, he has already had several wow moments. Well, if you go watch his highlights and his footage, a 7-1 guy putting the ball on the floor after a block shot and defensive rebounding, going coast to coast and dunking it. You've seen him pull up and knock down some threes. Folks I've talked to that seen him play in person say, whether or not he's a focal point once the game starts, you look at him in warm-ups and the dude is out there, you're going, whoa, this guy's got a really high ceiling. That's the thing. One of the more recent segments we talked about, I had a source saying the staff is really, really pleased with what they're getting in Paulo Semedo in terms of, their ability to develop him and the long-term payoff. If it's something that happens sooner, great. That's gravy. I think they feel good if they stay healthy with a main three rotation, obviously, of the veteran guys, Trevor Brazil, who's back at Arkansas again, and then the two newcomers out of the portal, Malik Ewan and Nick Pringle. But having said that, Arkansas doesn't have a lot of depth at the four. It's going to be some Carter Knox getting some of his minutes. We expect him to increase his minutes mostly on the wing, maybe some at the two, maybe some at small ball 4. I don't think what we hear about Semedo right now changes any of that, but it just might give Semedo, if he continues to progress and show more wow plays. But I expect that. You're the first few days on the campus. I mentioned these guys deserve their own zip codes. As good as veteran as Trevor Brazil, Pringle, and Ewan are, and they've seen a lot in college basketball, they don't see 7'1" with a 7. I'm telling you, man, if his wingspan's not at least 7'6", I'm surprised. Based on the photos and based on the measurements that have been published for a long time for Brazil. And that's who he's standing next to with all the wingspans extended, and they're right next to each other. It's insane. And so that's just something different for all of those guys to have to adjust to now on a daily basis in practice, going up against him. He's a 4-5 combo. He's got enough ability with the ball, I think, to be a stretch 4 at some point. How soon we really see all this stuff in minutes that matter. I mean, they're just getting on campus, but already making wow plays and whatever they're doing, pickup ball, whatever stuff they're working on in there. And again, those other frontline guys will have to make adjustments to him to shoot over him. I mean, he's in with that length and wingspan, he's got good athleticism too, and he's light on his feet. That's another thing. He's one of those guys that kind of glides at times, and so those are things that are going to cause others to have to make adjustments. That's going to help them in practice, even if he doesn't factor in. There's so many important nuances of understanding the system, understanding the little tricks and the wily veteran stuff at that level, and then playing consistency, learning how to stay out of foul trouble, learning how to step in the right place. You might have great gifts athletically, size-wise, all that, but it's understanding of the game. Those are all things that will help determine how soon and how much he actually helps Arkansas. But right now, just for practice purposes, he's going to help them for the things I just said. And the wow plays, it's not just that he's already started to show some of that, but the staff is like, yeah, the dude's ceiling is high. That's the feeling here. And again, you talk Javits. Let's go there. Maybe not as quick a path for him to see meaningful minutes. How much will one or both of those guys play this year remains to be seen. I think we're going to end up seeing both of them unless they get to a point where they're like, you know what, we're just going to redshirt a guy. We really believe in what we have here, and we don't want to burn a year of eligibility. So, I guess there's always that possibility. But Javits, I'm telling you, man, this dude is built like a Mack truck from head to toe. And just the physicality alone, just the force that it's going to take to play through him, to finish through him. Now, you might go around him or play above him, but if he gets his body into you, that's going to be another element in practice that forces guys like Brazil, Pringle, and Ewan to make adjustments, to consider on a consistent basis in a day-to-day practice that, guess what? During the season, I might run up against somebody that's bigger, built like that or similarly. And this is how I deal with it, So this helps Arkansas before they start helping with meaningful minutes on the court, having these two guys. Other things that stood out just from the photo for me was seeing Carter Knox, and I call him, I've got a new nickname for Billy Richmond III, BR3. I call him Rim Kill Bill. Remember the old Tarantino movies, Kill Bill, classics? Well, he's Rim Kill Bill. And the guy just attacks the rim. I mean, to me, I go back to Michael Qualls, just a vicious rim assaulter. And this is what Billy is. He's that guy. He's fearless. He wants to put you in the rim every time. There's more to his game than that. He continues to merge with the skill stuff. His shot looks better. He's gotten stronger. He's a menace defensively. We always talk about needs to, shave down the turnovers and some of that stuff being a foul magnet. But you love his rim work and the fact that he attacks. So Rim Kill Bill and Carter Knox in this team photo, they were both on tippy toes. So they were standing, from their perspective, facing the camera. They were just to the right, both of them next to each other, just to the right of Malik Thomas. So when they're on their tiptoes, both of those guys are 6'6". Malik's listed at 6'5". He's probably close to 6'5" if he's not fully there, at least 6'4", but somewhere in between. But Knox and Richmond both looked a full 2 inches taller. Just when you look at the photo, when you first look at it and you see shoulders and heads and how tall, and you're like, oh my gosh, either Malik's way under, but I saw them all together in that hour-long practice, and I've seen Malik in person, playing on the circuit and all these guys. I'm like, something's not right here. So my eyes pan down and I see that both Carter and Rim Kill Bill are standing on their tiptoes. They're tiptoeing, so they gave themselves extra height and inches. The rookie was down flat-footed like he should be in a photo, I guess. So that's what the discrepancy was. Nothing to see there other than it was a bit of an illusion for a little bit. I spent a little time on that. Kareem Artal was on one end at the back of the photo. We have not talked a lot about him. He was actually the first international player on this roster. Big Z, the first in the program with Calipari, left after that last season. We know that. And then Artal came in. And so we haven't talked as much about him because he didn't play much in the limited June and July. I think he was maybe on the court for a couple of weeks. I heard he did some good stuff as more of a wing kind of prospect. At 6'6", maybe 6'7", could shoot some, put the ball on the deck and drive. But really the strength of this game. Calipari even said not really a physical, not really a forward interior kind of guy. But the day we were in for that limited practice, he was sitting courtside. He was there, but he was not wearing the practice gear that the rest of the team wears. And he had on a black T-shirt with the Razorback logo stuff on it. And in this photo, he's dressed similarly. He's still got that on. So it's been said that it's a back issue. And so I don't know if it's precautionary at this point, if he's still not cleared, what it is, but whether they actually went through anything on the court or not. I know last week they were focusing more on strength and conditioning. And I don't know if they wear the same gear for that as they do on the court or similar. But I do know Artal is still wearing the different top T-shirt than the rest of the team right now. And that just may be because he's not cleared. But just stuff we pick out when we look at photos. Going through all 15. someone's asking something and someone said maybe Kevin's updating now. I'm not sure what the question was. I missed that. So I hope you've gone through most of the updates. There's just not a lot to talk about in terms of on court since they've been back. More about the photos that came out. Everybody's there, the 2 7-footers and what the immediate observations are, because you can see players listed, you can watch highlights, you can even see them up close and in person. But until they're with the rest of the team and players you're more familiar with, that you've seen more, and you know now this is a group together that's going to go through an entire journey together this upcoming season, now you have a better perspective of what it all looks like together. And that's always fascinating to me. So even though we don't have a lot to report right now about what are they doing on the court, well, there'll be plenty of time for that. We're just getting started. We had to get through this initial stuff, and it was significant enough, some of the stuff Semedo's doing, to say he's already had some wow moments. He's always been that way. And again, with his package of goodies, the wingspan, the height, the athleticism, some of the skill stuff he can do, he's got to refine a lot. He's got to mature, get stronger, all of these things, learn. But they're going to be time. He's the kind of guy that when he first comes into any environment, again, you're making adjustments if you're a veteran guy, and he's going to do some stuff that you don't see on a day-to-day basis in there. First of all, you don't see 7'1", 7'5" plus wingspan. You just don't. And again, you add in the fact that he's light off his feet and again athletic and has some soft skills. There's a lot to work with there, and you understand why the thought is there's a high ceiling. All right, let's move on and just go through real quick before I move on to other business and some scheduling stuff we need to talk about. All 15 guys: Trevor Brazile, DJ Wagner, Carter Knox, Billy Richmond III, a.k.a. Rim Kill Bill, Darius Acuff Jr., Malik Thomas, the 2 5-star incoming freshman guards, Malik Ewan, Nick Pringle, the 2 big men on the front line that came in through the transfer portal, Isaiah Seeley, the talented combo guard wing out of Springdale. He's going to play. He's going to get his opportunities, I think, this year. I don't know about a projectable game-to-game, rotation and role projection right now, but I think he's going to play more than just mop-up duty. I got a feeling there'll be maybe some opportunities too for Semedo, and then our opinions on this stuff may change based on obviously more that we hear as they get into fall practices and things ramp up and we start to get feedback on what these guys are doing, what kind of positives and maybe opportunities that they, issues that they have to work out. But Seeley and Semedo, Javich, obviously, Kareem Artal, who we mentioned, Jaden Carroll-Letwa, Aiden Kelly back for his second season as a walk-on, Carroll-Letwa back for his season technically on athletic scholarship, and then Amir Brown, who buddies with Malik Thomas, with Leak out of the Pittsburgh area, who we've been talking about for quite a while, the 5'10" guard that's also a walk-on. So that's 15 players. Because Aiden Kelly is grandfathered in to the new roster limits that include walk-ons against the 15 total number, because he's grandfathered in, technically Arkansas still has an open roster spot. School's already started. My understanding is that the last day to enroll, once it started Monday, is a full week later, which would be Monday. And so I don't know if there's a way around that in terms of getting someone enrolled, and you haven't. I just don't know if there's a way to get around that. But there's also the possibilities when you have a roster spot that you add someone at the semester break. And we've seen that in the past at Arkansas, and we've seen it around college basketball. So there's always a chance. There's always a possibility for a late addition, even if you can't get him in time for this semester, again, maybe at the midterm. All right, let's move on to other information. It was interesting. Yesterday I watched it was on my YouTube feed. I opened up YouTube, and right first thing I saw was a CBS Sports, basically a basketball breakdown of the Arkansas Razorbacks. Gary Parrish, Matt Norlander, 2 CBS Sports, in the trenches for that network and their college basketball coverage. Everybody knows that, and they really started talking about Arkansas. And I figured the Arkansas fan base, might take exception with some of it. We're high on Arkansas. We've mentioned that this could be a final weekend, Final Four kind of a team, kind of roster. Question marks again about depth, shooting. You just never know. Arkansas's got a brutal non-conference, a brutal regular season schedule, SEC schedule, as well as what will be projected as the top league in the country again. And so these guys are talking through it. And Paris says, Arkansas's got 5 marquee matchups in non-conference. He ran through them. Everybody knows who they are: Duke, Houston, Texas Tech, Louisville, Michigan State, which is a road game. And he says he sees Arkansas winning only one of those five. And he basically named the games he thinks they're going to lose, which left Louisville at home in the ACC SEC Challenge as the team he thinks Arkansas will beat. And he eventually said, so I think they have 4 non-conference losses. You have 13 non-conference games, so that's a 9-4 projection without him saying that specifically. And then he sees a pathway to 12-6 for Arkansas in the SEC, which is in the range that I've recently talked about when we went through the league schedule. I said a max ceiling of 15-3, 11-7 was a floor, and then I kind of settled somewhere in the middle there and said I think a 13-5 projection feels right for me. Well, he said 12-6, so 1 game off, and so when you add those numbers together, it's a 21-10 regular season, and they justified that even with that record, and as tough as that schedule is, as quality as it is, that justifies their feeling that Arkansas is a top 20 team and should be top 15 to top 20 in that range. Norlander also agreed. Paris went through that. Norlander agreed with him. But I thought was something interesting. Norlander then brought up what we've talked about forever. When you look at the schedule, the fact that Arkansas is playing all 8 of the last year's Elite 8 teams, which means they're playing the entire Final Four field, right? The field only gets smaller from the Elite 8. So if you're playing all the Elite 8, you're playing every team that also advances and the one that becomes the defending national champion. And he thought it might be an unprecedented scheduling scenario in the history of college basketball, something that we wondered about when we talked about it. I also mentioned when we first talked about that, when we knew enough about the schedule to know that was going to be the way it was, I said, it's not just that you're playing that many of the Elite 8 teams from a year ago, it's the fact that most of those teams are going to be projected again to be in the pecking order for some kind of top 5 preseason, top 10, some of them, top 15, most of them. And Norlander brought up the same point. It's not just the quality they were last year. What matters is the fact that you're basically lining up against most of those programs expected to be top tier once again. So they really lauded and praised Calipari for doing that. And they said that just the fact that Arkansas had so many inconsistent stretches last year. They brought up the 3-point shooting and more question marks. The fact that it's mostly a freshman backcourt, which we've talked about, as talented as they are, that's still a thing. All the things we've talked about, they got into. I don't have a lot of problems with what they said and what their evaluations were. The one thing that Matt Norlander did, he mentioned Knox and said Kevin Knox. Well, that's his older brother, played for, was an NBA guy, played for Cal. That's an easy mistake to make. I do it all the time. People with the same last name, I know exactly who I'm talking about. I know what their name is, and I just spit it out and regurgitate out a first name that goes with the same last name, and that happens sometimes. So I'm not going to hold that against him. I'm not going to use that as evidence. Well, he clearly doesn't know this Arkansas team. He thinks Kevin Knox plays for it. No, he doesn't. All right, so I'm not going to defend their opinion as the gospel. Mine's a little bit more bullish on the Razorbacks, but it's not far-fetched, and I understand where they were coming from, all that. But the real nugget of info, and there was intel in here, and I put it out on social media yesterday, so it's not my intel. It came from Matt Norlander, and we're talking about it now, is that Michigan State game, that's the one out of the 5 marquee non-conference matchups that we know about now. We know of 8 total opponents, 5 marquee, 5 more to be named, assuming Arkansas gets to the full 13, which I expect they will. They'll need a multi-team event in there, which I'm told they're working on and will have, so that they should get there. Anyway, we know about the 5 marquee matchups. We knew 4 of those dates. Let's run through those. Duke, Thanksgiving Day, November 27th. It kind of tips off a gauntlet of tough games running through December as a lead up to the what's going to be a tough SEC, and that's opener in early January at home against Tennessee. But you start with Duke, November 27th, December 3rd again, Louisville, ACC SEC Challenge, 3rd annual. That's at Bud Walton Arena. Then on the 13th, Arkansas travels to Dallas, back in Dallas at American Airlines Arena. It's a neutral site game against Texas Tech. Yeah, we don't need to say more about what happened last year when those two teams met on a neutral court. Then you finish up in this as far as we know now, the marquee matchups a week later, December 20th in Brooklyn at Barclays Center against Houston, the national runner-up, a team, again, just like all these other teams we just said, are going to be projected more highly. The road game at Michigan State we've known about for weeks, if not a month or more, but we didn't know the playing date. I always speculated it'd probably be November because you have so many of those games starting late November with Duke, going through your December month, and most of those are kind of brutal, right? So probably going to get one of these in November. Well, Norlander reported in this podcast with Parrish that Arkansas is going to play at Michigan State on November 8th. That's a Saturday, and it just happens to be the weekend, the end of the first week of the college basketball season. Arkansas opens, and this is reporting that came from Rocco Miller, who covered mainly focused on scheduling for D1 teams. And he reported a while back that Arkansas will open at home the first day of college basketball, Monday, November 3rd. The Razorbacks will host Southern out of the SWAC. And so last year, Arkansas opened with Lipscomb at home on the opening day of college basketball. And then at the end of the week, on November 9th, a Saturday, they were American Airlines Arena in Dallas playing Baylor. Two ranked teams going head to head. It'll be the same thing likely when Arkansas plays Michigan State, two ranked teams. And you finished out your first week of the college season playing away from home in one of those mega matchups. So it's very interesting. A couple of thoughts here. First of all, Calipari doesn't schedule a lot of true road games in non-conference. Usually they're not. He doesn't go to these off-site tournaments either. He doesn't like those. It's just these one-off big stage games in neutral site typically. I think it's a good idea to play a road game. You're going to get a return game the next year. Bud Walton Arena will be rewarded. The fans for Arkansas with Michigan State, the Spartans coming in. Again, an Elite Eight team last year, team that won the Big Ten regular season. Strong program. We know it's Tom Izzo, another legend, an icon, a Hall of Famer for the ages in college basketball coaching. And so it makes a lot of sense. I think the only thing, so I like the matchup, I like the timing. You don't need to play all those tough games together in a cluster. You already kind of have that. Why not get one knocked out in early November and then see what, kind of assess, evaluate, and tweak or do whatever you need to do based on something early, kind of out of the gates. So a lot of times you see teams play 3, 4, 5, bye games, cupcakes at home. You don't challenge yourself. The next thing you know, you go on the road and you're shell shocked and you get spanked or something, you're just not ready. Okay. You may not be fully ready for this one, but it'll help you understand what you need to do moving forward. The only other thing I will throw in here is that is a pretty big gap, November 8th, until you get into league play. You open at home this year against Tennessee. Last year was on the road in the SEC opener. And then you're immediately back-to-back road games, a couple of toughies. I think it's Ole Miss and Auburn on the road. And those are going to be, Auburn, Final Four team last year. They're replacing a lot, but they recruited well. They brought Pettiford back, and that's a road game. You're going to play them twice, right? Round robin, you'll get them at home later. So you've got a pretty big gap from going into a true road environment, and then the next time you'll be tested to do that. You say, well, McPherson, you're playing all those tough games, neutral site games. You said those are tough. Neutral site, there is tough. You're not in your home arena, and you're playing quality, and it's going to help you get ready for the SEC. And so this sounds like I'm nitpicking, and I'm trying to find something to be negative about. All I'm saying is that if I think about that road game, maybe a little somewhere in December and maybe one of those other games in the first weekend, like neutral site game last year against Baylor, would feel just a little better for me in terms of how you set it up to get ready for league play. Now, sometimes you just don't have a choice. You want to play certain teams. You want to make those matchups happen. Sometimes their calendar and what they've got going on, what they've scheduled, you just got to do it where you do it. So I'd rather take it and have it than to say, well, they shouldn't have scheduled it because they couldn't get it here. Not saying that at all, just an observation, just something if I were saying, I wish this was a little bit different. Well, that's what I would have wished for. But Norlander, the reporting is Arkansas will have at least. The CBS podcast was awful. So, I think a lot of Hog fans are going to feel that way. They're going to feel like Arkansas slept on. Norlander brought up the point where neither of the big men Arkansas brought in. Pringle now in his 5th year of college basketball attempted 4 threes. Malik Ewan only one in his college career. Now, we talked about what we were hearing from inside the building, him in these pick and pop situations, he's knocking down threes. I saw it for myself. Maybe he adds that. But those are unknown things. Those are not things that you can predict will translate to the game once they're playing real competition and not just each other. We don't know that yet. Those are fair. Some of the things I brought up I thought were very fair. I didn't have a huge problem with it. I didn't agree with everything. I'm higher on what this Arkansas team can be and probably will be. They seem to think they're going to have some of those struggle stretches like they did last year when they started 0-5. Maybe not that bad. I'm not sure about that. I don't know that I believe that. And I think they'll do better than Paris said in those 5 non-conference marquee matchups. I just do. I think 3-2 is doable. I think anything's doable. I don't know how good this Arkansas team can be. They did talk about the retention, but the scheduling part of it, kudos to Matt Norlander for at least giving us that playing date. And again, the University of Arkansas has not officially put out a non-conference schedule. We know the SEC and the league games are out; they've been out. Arkansas, we know what those are. We've talked a lot about them. Now we already knew the Michigan State game, but now we know when. So again, we know 8 of the opponents. Remember, Southern November 3rd at home. Our first reported Arkansas is going to play in-state Division I UCA back in Fayetteville. That was set to be November 11th. In-state opponent there. Arkansas's also got Queens of Charlotte, which is out of North Carolina. They play in the A-Sun, I believe. Queens is December 16th, and that's a home game at Bud Walton Arena. So we know that's an opponent that will be in the middle of some of those marquee games. And I'm trying to remember, they've got, so that's 3, Southern, UCA, and Queens, plus the 5 marquee games that we know. So that's 8. So if they can get it to 13, there's 5 more that we don't know. We know all 18 SEC opponents, including the round robins, home and aways, and we know the dates for those. So we've got now dates for all 8 now, thanks to Norlander, of all 8 non-conference games we know, still waiting on 5. They need to leave the basketball analysis to John Rothstein, who's also CBS Sports. He's got Arkansas preseason ranked 11th. Norlander said he could see Arkansas from the 8 to 10 range, that he's not ruling that out. He said that Arkansas is one of the 3 college teams they've talked about that probably has a large variation of where the ceiling is and where the floor is. He acknowledged that. He said there's unknowns. How are those true freshmen going to be? They talked about A-Cup and said he may be one of the top 2 or 3 freshmen in the country. That's very well possible in what was a loaded 2025 class. It says a lot. All the things we've talked about. We've talked about A-Cup as potentially being Arkansas's leading scorer, all SEC, including potentially first team, depending upon how well Arkansas does. And we've even thrown him into an All-American conversation recently. These guys weren't way off. I mean, again, they don't shine it as much maybe as some of the local folks do. I don't think I'm biased, but I might be just a little bit. I don't think I am. I really study other college teams, what they did in recruiting out of the portal, out of the high school. I've seen all those players in person, even the ones in the portal, because once upon a time they were in high school, and I've been doing it for years. So I'm familiar with all these guys, their development, what their value is, why they don't stay in the draft, why they come back. Plenty of sources in the background that explain, help me understand the things I don't see that they see. So I feel good when I say that I believe Arkansas is a top 10 coming into the season kind of team, which I've been consistent at. I keep teasing the fact I'm going to have an SEC initial power rankings coming out soon, which I will, and Arkansas will be in the top 3 there. I think these guys had Arkansas 5th in the league at 12-6. Okay, again, I don't agree with that. I disagree, but I don't think they're fools. I understand the logic by which they arrived at that. I don't agree with it. But again, I don't think they're off their nut. Norlander's not typically high on the Hogs, regardless of who's running the situation. But we thought in EPM, Eric Patrick Melsman's final season, that team was going to be much better than a losing team and a team that went 6-12 in the SEC. And Matt Norlander, I think in his preseason rankings, didn't have Arkansas in the top 25. Did a good job there. He was right. He caught a lot of criticism. And again, I'm not, I'm not here to help CBS Sports and their analysts along with anything. If they're way off, I'm gonna say, dudes, this is way off. This is, is there an agenda here? Could you be that clueless? I don't see it that way. All right, one more thing before we get out of here. Nearly 35 minutes in. Thank you for joining me on HogvilleNET Live, YouTube Live. I'm Kevin McPherson. JJ Andrews, what a run it's been for him. He's in another elite camp. It was, enough that he was blowing up since the spring on the Nike EYBL circuit. Was one of the top performers, if not the top performer at the prestigious NBPA Top 100 camp. Then he has that big run in July. We know what he did. MVP of the Nike Peach Jam. It doesn't get any better than that for high school sports for grassroots basketball spring and summer. It's the best against the best. It's the best circuit, and it's their biggest platform is Peach Jam. That's where the best rises to the top. MVP, back-to-back champs, 4-time MVP when you look at 2 state titles here in Arkansas. And then he followed that up. He could have just said, all right, that's a summer break. Let's get into the school season. No. Elite camp after elite camp. You remember he was in the high school portion of the CP3 Jason Tatum guard wing camp a few weeks ago. That was in Las Vegas. He recently took part in the Slam Summer Classic in Harlem. I think that was Monday. So just this week, we talked about that. I tweeted out some of the highlights from that game. He played well in another win. All he does is win, man. Cue up DJ Khaled. All this dude does is win. But he's back with Nike. They used to call it the Nike Skills Academy out in Los Angeles. Now they just call it the Academy. But they're bringing in the top players. Last week, they had their college version of it. We know Malik Thomas and Carter Knox, who were also in the CP3 Jason Tatum, along with Rim Kill Bill. All three of those with JJ in the high school part in the CP3 Jason Tatum. Then for the Academy college version, it was Malik Thomas and Carter Knox back at that a few days ago, a week ago, and now just a few days ago, we saw highlights, a video put out by Nike Elite Youth Basketball, where the participants for the high school version of the Academy in LA were incoming, and they had him, I guess already chilling in the lounge playing ping pong with somebody. I guarantee you he either won or cried because he doesn't cry. He's not a crier. But the point is, he doesn't like losing, and he usually wins. I don't know if he won the ping pong game or not, but he looked confident, and he was all smiles. He always is. And remember what I told you the other day? We had a big segment and more intel on the 2026 recruiting just a few days ago. And I was asked, well, which players, because he's familiar with some of them, with Erfan Gianni, teamed with him at NBPA Top 100 camp. Same with the Duke Torre. They were teammates at NBPA Top 100 camp. Or Mika Murnin, who Arkansas continues to prioritize. And the fact that they played together in the Nike E16 Peach Jam title last year. Murnin not on Brad Bill Elite's team this year, didn't do anything. We'll play Euro Cup later this month, didn't do anything in spring and summer. Arkansas will have a coaching presence over to watch him. We talked about that a few segments ago. So JJ's got some connections with some of these guys already. Usually elite players already know each other. I mean, Jordan Smith Jr. and JJ were on the court together on the same team at the Slam Summer Classic game. So there's opportunities to interact. But when I asked the staff, you've got JJ in the fold, the first 5-star off the board. I've got him ranked 4th overall, ESPN 12th. We both have him as 5 stars. He's a 5-star in the composite rankings, 13th in 247. We won't mention the other ranking because it's silly, ridiculous, and offensive. But JJ, what is his involvement here? He knows some of these guys, some better than others. And I said, who's he helping recruit? And the one-word answer I got was everyone. So JJ's busy, man. He's recruiting. He's taking part in these elite camps. He's showing out and standing out. He hasn't backed off. He's wanted all the smoke. He's put himself on these platforms that gives himself a chance to learn more, to take instruction, mentorship, all these things and build on it. And at the end of the day, he's always made, even when he was young, there was not a selfish element in his DNA when I covered him as an 8th grader. He continues to build on himself as a player. He's still got a full season of high school to go, aiming for that 3rd state title. And then he'll sign that November, make it official, senior season. And then in the spring, he'll be one of those guys we're talking about moving on to campus. This dude is only going to get better, and I can't wait. All right, we're done. We didn't quite get to 40 minutes, 38, almost 39 minutes. One last thank you for joining me here on HogvilleNET YouTube Live. If you haven't done it already, please hit subscribe, like, and share. It helps us out. We appreciate everybody. Don't expect anything of major importance to break today. If it does, I'll jump back on. If not, we'll probably be on either tomorrow or Monday. I still owe everybody a football hog segment, which I'm going to do. We're still tweaking on that and working on it and figuring out how we exactly want to do it. I've had a couple of segments already. Appreciate those that have tuned in for it. But until next time, thanks for being here. Be great in all your endeavors. We appreciate all of you. See you soon.